Welcome to Byte-Sized Tech. Okay, so let's talk about this. I'm sure you recognize the classic VHS tape, right? An absolute icon. But what about this little thing? Believe it or not, this is also a VHS tape, and its story is one of the most fascinating examples of how a simple, almost good enough idea can completely change an entire industry.
So just picture this for a second. What if that big, clunky VHS tape that we all know and love had a tiny, pocket-sized little brother? I mean, the size difference is just wild when you see them side by side. But this little cassette, it was hiding a secret that would help it totally take over the world of home movies.
It was called VHS-C, with the C standing for compact. Now, the key thing to get here is that this wasn't some revolutionary new format. No. It was literally the same technology, the exact same video signals as its bigger sibling, just crammed into a much smaller shell with a whole lot less tape. You could almost call it a lazy idea, really.
But that supposedly lazy idea came with an absolute stroke of genius. Its killer trick. You see, this little tape had a partner in crime, an adapter that could instantly make this tiny tape grow up into a full-sized one, ready to be used in any VCR on the planet. And the way it worked was just brilliantly simple. You just pop the small tape into the adapter, you close the door, and then with this really satisfying whirring sound, these little motorized arms would pull the tape out and position it perfectly. And just like that, your camcorder tape was now a normal VHS tape. No special cables, no hassle, nothing.
Now, to really get why this was such a big deal, we have to travel back in time, back to the 1980s. This was an era that was completely obsessed with miniaturization. Everybody wanted their Walkman, their calculator, their everything to be smaller and more portable. And video, well, video was the final frontier.
The whole journey to portable video was, let's just say it was awkward. At first, you had these massive VCRs that were basically chained to your TV. Then you got these so-called portables that were actually three separate things you had to lug around: a recorder, a camera, and a heavy battery pack. Even the first all-in-one camcorders were absolute shoulder busters, just huge.
And all of this pointed to one central engineering problem. I mean, sure, you could shrink the circuit boards, you could make the motors smaller, but you were always stuck with the physical size of the cassette itself. The big question was, how on earth do you shrink a videotape?
And this is where the story takes a really weird turn. JVC, the company that invented VHS, they released their solution, the VHS-C tape, but they did it to solve a problem that hadn't really been solved yet. It was a product that was way ahead of its time.
Let's just put a pin in that date, 1982. They released this tiny tape format in 1982. Now, this was before the first truly compact all-in-one camcorders were even on the market. So what were they thinking?
When it first came out, it honestly seemed kind of pointless. The tapes could only hold 20 minutes of video, and the recorder made for it, it wasn't even that much smaller than the existing portable gear because it still had full-size VHS parts crammed inside. It was really a product for people who cared more about looking like they were from the future than making a smart purchase.
But here's the thing, JVC wasn't just chasing some gimmick. They were playing the long game. They could see the writing on the wall. They knew electronics were getting smaller and smaller every single year, and they were betting that eventually their tiny tape would be the absolute perfect match for a truly tiny camcorder. And guess what? Just 2 years later, they were proven right. In 1984, JVC launched the Video Movie Camcorder. This thing was so futuristic, it was immortalized in the movie Back to the Future as this amazing piece of technology that blows Doc Brown's mind. The vision was finally becoming a reality.
But of course, they weren't the only players in the game. Their arch rival, Sony, saw what was happening, and they decided to fight back, not with some lazy adaptation, but with a brand new format, one that was built from the ground up specifically for camcorders.
They called it Video8. It used a narrower 8mm tape, and it was engineered to be the perfect camcorder format. But here's the crucial difference. It was completely, totally, 100% incompatible with the entire world of VHS.
So if you looked at the specs on paper around 1990, the choice seemed obvious. Video8 looked like the clear winner, right? 2 hours of recording time versus a measly 30 minutes for VHS-C. Far superior audio quality. But the real story, the reason this whole thing played out the way it did, is hidden in those bottom two rows: playback and ecosystem. That's where the real war was won.
And this brings us right to VHS-C's secret weapon: compatibility. It is the perfect, and I mean perfect, example. of how being good enough can sometimes be way, way better than being technically the best.
The real difference wasn't when you were filming, it was what happened after. With VHS-C, you filmed your kid's birthday party, you came home, you popped the tape in that adapter, and you hit play on the VCR that everybody already owned. With Video8, well, that was a chore. You had to find the right cables, hook the whole camcorder up to the TV, and then try to control everything with these tiny, fiddly little buttons.
And this is the paradox, right at the heart of this entire story. VHS-C's biggest weakness, the fact that it was based on this old, compromised 1970s technology, was also its single greatest strength. It was still VHS, and that meant it fit seamlessly into the lives people were already living.
You know, here's a fantastic way to think about it. That simple mechanical adapter, it was basically the ancestor of the little micro SD card adapters that we all use today. It's a concept that just works because it bridges the new thing with the old thing completely effortlessly.
Okay, so what about that horrible 30-minute recording time? Well, it turns out that for most people, it just wasn't a problem. Nobody was filming feature films. They were shooting short clips. Plus, your arm would get tired holding that heavy camera. And the batteries back then almost never lasted longer than the tape anyway. So swapping a tape when you swap the battery, it was no big deal. It really all comes down to what consumers actually care about. For the average family buying a camcorder for vacation, sure, the tech specs were nice to have, but ease of use, that was everything. The ability to just watch your tapes without a huge headache was a feature that for millions of people totally outweighed longer recording times.
And that, right there, is the moral of the story. It's such a powerful lesson, not just in technology, but in design and human behavior. Sometimes, the thing that wins isn't what's technically the best. It's what's easiest to understand. It's what fits in your brain the nicest.
So that leaves us with a final thought. VHS-C won because it was convenient, it was familiar, and it was simple. It definitely wasn't the best technology, but it was the best fit for people's lives. So think about it. What's the VHS-C in your life today? What good enough tech do you choose over the quote-unquote best option just because it works and makes your life easier? If you enjoyed the episode, please like, comment, share, and subscribe.